السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. سو دوادا وشوغاني Magaaladayda Minneapolis oo waxaad maanta naga daawanaysaan Sora Media ee xagga Somali American Television. Maanta waxaan inii haynaa program oo xanuun badan laakiin aad iyo aad muhiim u ah xagga communitygeena. Maanta waxaana la joogtaa Shunu Shrestha oo ka socota la taliyaha sare ee ganacsiga xagga dadka ee Magaaladayda Minneapolis bay ka shaqeysaa. Marka ayadana hadda show ku soo dhaweynaynaa. Shunu soo dhawow. Naftaada waxaad nooga sheegtaa waxa aad jeceshahay maxaad Magaalada Minneapolis ka qabataa?
Well, firstly, thank you so much for your time. Thank you for and thank you to your viewers and listeners. My name is Shrestha, and I am the City of Minneapolis Senior Advisor. I work with a lot of internal departments and external stakeholders in implementing the city's blueprint on human trafficking and exploitation. In that, I support many different initiatives that intersect with human trafficking and exploitation, such as the overlap of substance use disorder and human trafficking and exploitation, overlap of labor exploitation and labor trafficking, and overlap of homelessness, mental health disorders, and human trafficking and exploitation.
aad iyo aad baa u mahadsan tahay. waa shaqo aad iyo aad muhiim u ah. shaqadani marka si fiican maanta nooga faa'iideysta. marka Shunu siday magaaladu ay war uga bixisaa xaggan oo wacdigelin ah ganacsiga jirka?
Yeah, human trafficking for your viewers. I just want to provide a very quick framing of what human trafficking is. Human trafficking is a public health issue. Human trafficking is a human services issue. Human trafficking is human rights issue. It's a civil rights issue. And of course, it's a public safety issue. It's on all of us to be aware of human trafficking and exploitation, who the victims are, who are vulnerable to being trafficked and exploited. Recognize the signs, what constitutes human trafficking, and be proactive about it. Meaning that when you recognize the signs, how can you act? How can you support in prevention? How can you support the work for intervention and things like that? So it's really, really important for all of us to be aware of these signs. And we can only do that through awareness. We can help survivors learn about the different resources that are out in the community so that they know that there's help and they can leave the exploitative situations or quote-unquote the life whenever they want to. And the City of Minneapolis, in active partnership with many different organizations outside of the city and Minneapolis Public Health, have developed different awareness campaigns throughout the years. And just recently, we developed a campaign called Sex Trafficking Thrives in Silence. And that was developed by survivors, subject matter experts with lived experience. And the goal of the campaign is to destigmatize the overlap of substance use disorder and human trafficking and exploitation. Many people who are in exploitative situations are often exploited by traffickers, their facilitators, by forcing different kinds of drugs on them. And at times, survivors and victims use different kinds of substances to cope with their trauma, to numb their pain. So it's very important for us to recognize how people get into these habits and find themselves in these exploitative situations. So the Sex Trafficking Thrives in Silence campaign is really to bring the awareness on these two important topics and ensure that victim survivors are aware of different resources that are out in the community and can access these resources when they feel they are ready to do so.
waa arrimaha aad isdhahdaan waxani waa wax laga xishoodo mise waa waxani wax community-ga ka dhicin reasonka annaga maanta aan inta u joogno waxa weeyaan inaan wargelin iyo diilangelin ina gelino waxani waa wax dhaca waxani waa wax gabdhaheena yaryar ma aragtay ku dhaca marka ha is oranin waxaan community-geena kama jiro waxyaalo badan oo loo yaqaan ceeb weeyaan xagga ma aragtay drug addiction ko kale substance use disorder waxa la dhaho kale oo ceeb la dhaho tanina waa isla mid marka labadooda way isla siman yihiin marka walaasheen waxaan weydiinayaa aleen ohololin badan baa jirta oo dhalinyarin la sameeynayo marka maxay magaalada Minneapolis u qabanaysaa xagan ololintan number 3
that's a very good question. Why the city is doing this campaign? A few years ago, we did a convening on the overlap of substance use disorder and human trafficking. That was again in active partnership with Minneapolis Public Health and Racial Equity, Inclusion and Belonging Department that my program was housed in. During that convening, we discovered that many people who are receiving services from community service providers, they disclosed that service providers are more aware of the intersections and overlap between human trafficking and substance use disorders, while that information is very little known in treatment providers. So they really are one of the recommendations from that convening was to bring more awareness on this overlap of these two topics, and which is why we wanted to ensure that when we develop this campaign in active partnership with survivors, to be precise, they were the subject matter experts who provided thorough input on the design and the visioning of this campaign. We not only wanted to ensure that their traumatic experiences were translated in these visuals, but rather their dreams and aspirations. Because the individuals who participated in the focus group really talked about of course, their traumatic experiences, being in exploitative situations, but they also talked about their dreams and aspirations, and that they are beyond their victimhood. And for that, we really wanted to ensure that victim survivors knew about the resources that are in the community. We also wanted community members to be aware of this overlap so that they are looking at victim survivors from a compassionate, kind lens. I know that many times we are really hard on people who we call drugs addicted, or people who are choosing this out of their own volition. But many times we find that people are choosing substances to cope with their traumatic experiences. And we've found that often to be true, especially for victim survivors in human trafficking and exploitative situations. So through this campaign, we really wanted to not only destigmatize these two overlapping issues, but we also wanted to raise greater awareness, especially in communities that may not know aware of these overlapping issues. And be more kind and compassionate and be more proactive about their responses to human trafficking and exploitation.
Yeah, wallahi aniga jirki baa saas ma aragtay ii gargariiray say u hadlayso iyo aniga shaqada aan qabto marka aan shaqadan joogin iyo waxa aan arko xagga community-geena iyo waxyaalo badan oo ma aragtay iska qarsoon marka waxa waaye wax human keena uu ku dhex jiro jiirkeena maaragtay uu gubanayo waxyaalo badan dadka badan ayna ogeen xagga bulshada marka maxay yihiin qaar ka mid ah calaamadaha ay dadka ay isdhehaysid inay isha ku hayaan oo kale because indhaha waa inaad furtaa dhagahana waa inaad furtaa si ma aragtay aad u aragtid waxa community ka jira.
That I understand is number 4.
Yes.
Thank you. Yeah, some of the signs that people
calaamadaha
should
lagu
be
garto
on the lookout for
dadka sameeya hawlaha kan waxa ka mid ah
physical abuse or neglect.
badanaa dadka dhibaato oo jirdilaya u
young
u geystaan
people missing school
caruurta
regularly
yaryar oo
without
iskuulka ka
unexplained
saaqida
reasons.
ayaa u nugul
People missing work regularly again
dadka
without unexplained
shaqooyinka
reasons.
ka zagzaaga oo aan imaan
Someone
ayaa
who's
iyaguna
telling
saas oo kale u nugul
inconsistent stories or rehearsed stories if you are in the presence of the person who's in the presence of someone else and you're asking some questions to the person but there is someone else who is
waxaa kaloo jirta
consistently
mararka qaarkood
interrupting or providing answers on behalf of the
su-aashii
person.
aad oo
Young
weydiisay qof kale kugu
people
jawaabayo
dating someone much older. Young
dadka
people
la xiriira ama
having
xiriir kale leh
a
dadka
lot of
aad uga waaweyn
expensive clothes, shoes, just basically materials that are beyond their
waxyaabaha qaarkood waxaa ka mid ah
financial
alaabada qaarkood
capability.
uusan qofka
Or even their
uusan isaga
family's
lahayn inuu
financial
isticmaalayo oo
capabilities. Young people
ama ka
really
waaweyn
wearing sexually inappropriate clothes for their age.
waxyaabaha qaarkood
or
oo lagu
whether
garto waxaa ka mid ah
inappropriate
dadka
clothes.
xirta dhar
For
aan
example,
munaasib
whether
ahayn
that be a young person or an
oo ay
older
dadku la
person.
yaabayaan
It's freezing out in Minnesota and they're in
mararka
really
qaarkood
not
Minnesota waa meel
weather-appropriate
qabow
clothes,
badan
meaning shorts
dadka qaarkood waxay
or
xiranayaan dhar
tank top
aan munaasib ahayn
that could be
calaamadahaas wax kale waxyaabaha lagu gartay ka
situation
mid tahay
where we could suspect
waxyaabahaasi
unusual
tuhunka keenaya
activity.
inuu qofkaasi yahay qof
And just out of
oo
compassion,
dhibano ku
asking
dhacday
people
hawlahaas oo kale
if they would like a warmer outfit, warmer clothes, because they are in this
waxaa laga
two-piece
yaabaa
clothes
xilligaa
when
qaboobaha
it's
inuu qofkaasi xiran yahay
freezing
dhar
outside.
loogu talagalay xilliga kulaylaha ah
And again, I think
waxyaabo waxaad ku
people,
arkaysaa
whenever
aan caadi
we're
ahayn
thinking of signs, I also
calaamadahaas
want to
waxay ku
talk
tusayaan
about
inuu
some
qofkaasi yahay
vulnerabilities.
qof dhibana
People who are young, who are poor,
waxaa kaloo dhici
who
karta
are
qof yar oo
victims of
da' yar
different kinds
oo
of
faqri ah
violences, even in
oo
the
u
house.
nugul in arrimahaas oo kale uu galay
People who are victims of domestic violence,
waxaa kaloo
sexual
dhacda
violence,
dadka dhibaatooyinka
people
guriga ku
who are
qabsatay
new in this country,
oo iyagoo
people whose first
dhalinyarada
language
yaryar
is not
iyo
English. These are all different
guryaha
things
ka
that
cararay
make a person really vulnerable to being
waxyaabaha dadkaasoo
trafficked
dhan waa
and
dadka u
exploited.
nugul inay
So in
hawshaan oo kale
addition
ay ku
to some
dhacaan
of the really obvious signs,
calaamadahaas oo
I
calaamadaha
would
lagu garto
also like to request your viewers and all of
haddii
us to
arrimahaas oo kale
be
aad aragto
mindful
waa
of
arrintaasoo
other
kale waa marka aad
matters that
loo baahan
can
yahay in
equally
dadkaasoo kale la
contribute
caawiyo
to
ama loo
somebody
sheego
being
adeegyada
really
meelay ka jiraan
vulnerable to human trafficking and exploitation.
dadka ka shaqaysta hawshaana waxaasoo kale way ka faa'iidaystaan
marka hadda waxay noo sheegtay calaamadaha lagu garto marka maaragtay qofkii uu ku jiro xaaladan marka maxay magaaladu ay maalingelin dadka dumarka maxay jirkooda iibinaya maxay heli karaan maxaa waay resourceskaas wax nooga sheeg
In Minnesota, we are really fortunate to
nasiib badannahay
have
dadkeena
some
Minnesota ku nool
resources. We don't have a lot of resources. We still
waxaana jira
struggle. We still
adeegyo
need
badan
more shelters,
oo Minnesota ay
especially more
leedahay oo dadka
supportive
loogu
services for
talagalay
adult
dhibanayaasha ah
people. But there still are some services that are both
inkastoo aysan
available
ku
for
filnayn
young
haddana
people
waxaa
under the
jiro
age of 24
shaltaro
through
ama
a
meelaha
program
hooya
called Safe
dadkaasoo kale
Harbor.
loogu talagalay hooy
And there are other organizations that
waxaa jiro
provide
ururo kaloo
shelter
caawiya
services, drug services
oo
to
ka caawiya xagga
people who are older
maandooriyaasha
than
dadka la
24.
qabsaday
So
sidii
the
loo
day one
caawin lahaa
hotline, which is 1-800
nambarku waxaa waa qof walbaan
799 7233, is a really important important number for all of us to be aware of. When you call this number, it's a 24/7 hotline, a crisis line. When you call this number and ask for resources, whether you are needing a shelter, whether you are needing to talk to an advocate, whether you need to go to a hospital because you are in physical pain or you have physical bruises, cuts, they'll know where these services are. They'll provide information on these services. They are very knowledgeable on different kinds of resources and services that are available for victims of human trafficking and exploitation and domestic violence and other kinds of crimes for that matter. So there's another organization called the Family Partnership in Minneapolis, and they have a Pride program, and Pride program has different resources for victims who are older than 24. So you can call Pride program phone number, and you can actually find all of this information on the city's website, which is again minneapolismn.gov/human trafficking resources, and you can find all this information there as well. And the other number that I want your viewers to be aware is the Bureau of Criminal Apprehension hotline, which is the anonymous tip line, which is 1-877-996-6222. So these are some really important numbers that your viewers can call if they need resources or wanting to report anything suspicious. Other than that, I think if you see someone in grave danger, please call 911. We do not want people to be intervening in situations if they think that there's a physical threat to them, if they fear of their own safety or safety of others. We really encourage them to call 911.
marka walaasheen waxayna siisay nambaro badan insha Allah hoosta in lagu soo qori doonaa marka halkaas aad kala xiriiri kartaan marka Shunu maxaa kale sidee dadku ay uga qayb gali karaan shaqadan
So like I think like I stated, we want people to call 911 if they see that someone is in danger. We don't want them to be physically involved in situations that could put them in danger or that could put the other people in danger. But if you think that it is comfortable enough, if you think that the situation is safe for you and the other person, please reach out to the person and ask if they need help, how they are doing. I think that is basic humanity, that is courteous thing to do. If you see somebody in distress, somebody who's crying, or somebody that you think would need help, just ask if they need help, if they can call someone for them. If they have a cell phone on them, offer, if you're comfortable offering your cell phone so that they can call someone to get them home, to take them to somewhere that they think is safer for them. And also basically asking if they need food, water, if they need you to call 911. So these are some of the basic things that they can do. And then also something that to be a little mindful of is not to assume that they are trafficked. This could be a situation where the person is just basically distrust for other reasons, right? So not necessarily assuming and asking the question if they are trafficked. Sometimes people might not even know that they are being trafficked, that they are in these exploitative situations. And you asking some of these questions could make them really uncomfortable.
haddii aad ka baqaysid
and might
inaad
actually
su'aalahaas
wanting
weydiisid
to flee away from you. So just being very cautious and careful not to
taxadar
ask some uncomfortable and
ha
difficult questions,
weydiinin
but
haddii
rather
aad
just
isleedahay
being
qofkani
present,
su'aalahaas uu
being
qabsanaya
fully present and asking how you can help them in that situation.
waxaad weydiin kartaa
Help
see
them
baan
lead
kuu
the
caawiyaa
conversation,
qofka
help them be in charge of the conversation, and just
waxaad isku
being
daydaa inaad
physically and
ogaato
emotionally
xaaladda
and
qofkaasi
mentally be present in that, I would say.
Yeah, thank you. Ma jiraan wax kale oo jeceshahay inaad bulshadeena la wadaagto? Number 7.
I think we covered many different things related to the overlap of human trafficking and exploitation and other things. I do like to make a note that human trafficking is a result of many other systemic inequalities that are racism, sexism, homophobia, transphobia, xenophobia, and many other discrimination. So I think in addition to being proactive about where the resources are, how can we ensure that victim and survivors are getting resources? I also want us to be thinking about digging deeper. Where does poverty stem from? Why are certain groups of people homeless? Why are certain groups of people on different kinds of substances? Are they getting the kind of help that they need? Why are certain groups of people unemployed? Are we doing enough to ensure that people from marginalized communities are getting the necessary help and getting the necessary resources that they need? Because what we see is people of color, people who are from marginalized communities, trans individuals, overwhelmingly victim of human trafficking and exploitation. So the conversation should be beyond just human trafficking and conversation, meaning that we should focus our conversations, our resources more on digging deeper into some of these other topic areas that are contributing to human trafficking and
waxyaabaha
exploitation.
keeni karo inuu dadka saasoo kale looga faa'iideysto bulshada way isweydiin karaan.
waa arrin aad iyo aad looga danqan karo, laakiin maanta waxaan ku faraxsanahay inay walaasheen nalo imaada ee nooga sheekaysay shaqada importantiga ay qabanayso xagga magaalada Minneapolis. dee barnaamijka halkaas aan kusoo gabagabeynaynaa. aad iyo aad baa u mahadsantihiin. Assalaamu calaykum.